It's like the news, but for nerds. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Nerdvengers, it is Josh, and this is your nerdy news rundown for Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. We've got a couple of juicy Marvel stories for you. Elizabeth Olson makes comments about her contract with Marvel and the future of the Scarlet Witch character in Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness. Kevin Feige talking to Men's Health about Shang Chi representation and apologizing for whitewashing the ancient one. Very weird and interesting story there. But first, let's begin with a brief story about DC animated pictures. During a presentation by Warner Brothers to advertisers talking about new coming content for HBO Max, Warner Brothers announced that J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves are re-teaming for a new Batman animated series. I'm reading here from The Hollywood Reporter. It says the powerhouse directors, along with DC Animated Universe veteran Bruce Timm, have received a straight-to-series order for Batman Caped Crusader from HBO Max and Cartoon Network. Here's an interesting quote here about the project. It says, Batman the Animated Series was a masterpiece that shaped the perception of the character for an entire generation of fans, said Warner Bros. Animation President Sam Register. It is in that spirit that we are bringing together three master storytellers in JJ, Matt, and Bruce, each with their own intuitive understanding and affection for the character, to create a new series that will continue in the same groundbreaking legacy. And here's a little teaser poster for the coming series. Pretty crazy, interesting looking design for Batman the Caped Crusader. You can obviously see right away the noir kind of tones and also the straight callback to the animation style and the mood of Batman the Animated Series. Time will tell if it is dope or it is not, and JJ being attached to it might cause some people to be a little bit concerned, but again, they paid him $1 bajillion to be over there working with this IP, and he has done well for IP in some regards. I know there's a large contingent of fans out there that don't like J.J. Abrams for things that he may have done to Star Trek or to Star Wars. I like some of his work. Some of it is definitely unfulfilling for me, particularly Rise of Skywalker. However, I think he certainly has something to bring to the table. He understands pop culture, and he certainly understands cinematic storytelling. So I think it's pretty cool. Bruce Timm, master of his craft in animation, and Matt Reeves I like as a storyteller as well. Batman and the Warner Brothers IP does need a new way to connect with younger audiences, and this seems like possibly a way to get to that. So it's kind of cool to see, not, every day we get a positive DC story, but if you're a big fan of Batman the Animated Series, this could be something that you could look forward to coming out on Cartoon Network and HBO Max. And now let's talk about comments made by Lizzie Olson all about the Scarlet Witch and her future in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First, while talking to a Glamour magazine, she made some comments about the Doctor Strange 2 film and her role in it. She says here, every Marvel movie is unique, and this one is sure to surprise fans. I can't wait to see your reaction, especially when it comes to the WandaVision part. Now, those comments are cool on their own, but when combined with a podcast interview she did with Scott Feinberg, she also makes comments about how Wanda has the ability to travel between universes, and she talks about how she originally had a pretty small contract with Marvel, but she has now gone through 3 contracts with them, and getting a new contract and getting new ones extended is all based on her character and whether or not it will continue to be useful to use Wanda in the storyline as opposed to the large 6 to 9 movie deals the other actors are offered with Marvel. Now, this is all very interesting. I also think it tracks with some comments about the development for Midnight Suns and the possibility of them wanting to use Wanda with Doctor Strange in a Midnight Suns franchise, whether that be in the films or in the television series. I also think there's something interesting about the way she's answering that, and it's possible that Marvel is changing the way that they're going to do contracts with talent because of the ever-expanding universe and their ability to pull characters all over the place. It's possible they may well just sign contracts at a much smaller rate. Now, when it comes to her comments about Doctor Strange 2 and the WandaVision aspects, I think this probably has to do with the twins and the possibility of meeting the twins again in Doctor Strange 2 Into the Multiverse of Madness. Now, we just talked about a story yesterday that suggested that Shuma Gorath will be the main villain of that film, and he is after the character of America Chavez and her ability to traverse the multiverse. But we know that Wanda's going to be a part of the film, and I even speculated yesterday, well, what about Wanda's place in the movie? How about that aspect of the film? And it's reassuring to hear Lizzie Olson at least refer to the fact that this film's going to surprise people, and she can't wait for people to see the WandaVision aspect. Now, it's heavily rumored that Wiccan and Speed will show up in that film. There's been plenty of indication of this, including social media posts by the kid actors about actually being on set for Wanda or for Doctor Strange 2, making comments that have since been deleted. They're just kids, Feige. Don't come after them. So either way, some crazy updates about WandaVision. I personally think this means that it's very likely that Lizzie Olson is going to play a big role moving forward in the MCU. If they're smart, I think they will sign her at a bigger contract, or at least kind of keep giving her work that she likes doing to keep her involved in the MCU, because, you know, moving forward, I just think there's a lot more to tell of Wanda's story. I liked WandaVision, but I felt like elements of House of M and elements of her story are not even close to being properly told yet, and it's such a big Easter egg, her being prophesized in the Darkhold to end the universe. I hope that has something to possibly do with Secret Wars or the macro plan for the MCU. So there's some indication here that we're getting a lot more Scarlet Witch. I want to know what you think about that in the comments section below. And now let's get into our top story tonight. This is all about Kevin Feige making comments about Shang Chi representation and also apologizing for whitewashing the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. I'm reading here from The Direct. It says here, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is Marvel Studios' next big push for diversity in its blockbuster franchise, bringing together an all-star cast and crew of majority Asian voices. Despite this, the MCU flick and Eternals may not be headed to release in China, which may have been caused by comments from the Eternals director Chloe Zhao. In response, Shang-Chi's leading star Simu Liu had a few words to say regarding negative comments aimed towards the film. The film is a massive stride for Asian representation in the MCU, especially considering the franchise's less than savory history regarding the matter. Ben Kingsley was cast as the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, and Tilda Swinton was brought on as the Ancient One in Doctor Strange, both of which received their fair share of criticism for whitewashing characters who were originally of Asian descent in the comics. The head of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, has now addressed these criticisms in addition to how Shang-Chi manages to avoid this. In an interview with Men's Health, Marvel Studio president Kevin Feige discussed the MCU's previous instances of whitewashing Asian characters. He says here, "We thought we were being so smart, so cutting edge. We're not going to do the cliche of the wizened old wise Asian man, but it was a wake-up call to say, well, wait a minute. Is there any other way to figure it out? Is there any other way to both not fall into the cliche and cast an Asian actor?" And the answer to that, of course, is yes. The Marvel Studios head noted that the company has a long list of great characters who could make great movies regardless of how famous they were. Shang-Chi was one of those characters, which Feige considered was always a really great story, despite the stereotypes present in the original comic. The Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Shang-Chi will sidestep these cliches by giving the character a new origin, enabled by the fact that the character is relatively obscure. Kevin Feige mentioned that this new tale will explore how Shang-Chi exists between two worlds, in the North American world and in China. It's about having a foot in both worlds, in the North American world and in China, and Simu fits that quite well. Okay, so an interesting article. It's interesting that he would come out and talk about this in this Men's Health article, just in general. I do find it kind of odd that this is coming after, some comments made that, Disney, or rather that China, may not accept either the Eternals film or the Shang-Chi movie. Now, it's kind of weird to me. It seems like Feige is trying to sort of say that he supports Simu Lee and Chloe and sort of that idea of North Americanism, but he's also saying that the film lives in China, but the film might literally not go to China. China might completely reject the idea of Westerners even coming up with an Asian representation film that's a kung fu movie. And even in this article, this Men's Health article, Simu Liu kind of says the same thing. He talks about how it's a little bit weird that he's even playing this character, that he was frankly a little bit disappointed when he first heard about it. But the fact that they are redoing the origin, making it much more relatable to those struggles, to those biases, and really bringing in what it will be like to be Asian and be living with all those, presumed stereotypes about you, and yet still having like some connections to that side of your culture as well. I'm interested in that and interested in how it is, going to be playing out. But it just seems like it's like Disney and Feige saying one thing, talking to a North American audience with this particular article, and I just wonder if there's a different message going over to the people of China. And I'm also curious if there's going to be an effort made to change these movies in order to get them into China. China classically has already asked Marvel and other studios to change things about particular movies so that then the censored Chinese version of the film is acceptable to them. I had even heard, interestingly enough, that the Tilda Swinton changing of the Tibetan monk, which is definitely not mentioned in this article, I heard that's the reason it was changed. Not that it was this, Asian stereotype, but that it was a Tibetan monk, and Tibet doesn't exist according to the Chinese. And so Marvel then changed it, and to really distance themselves from that controversy, they made the Ancient One a Celtic woman. From what I understood, that wasn't even an issue in China. China didn't care about that at all. It was audiences in the West and perhaps even North American Asian people that had a problem with the whitewashing of an Asian character. And so I like the fact that in some ways this article seems like Feige is standing up for Simu. He's standing up presumably for Chloe and for the representation that they're trying to accomplish. But it seems like he's sort of talking out of both sides of his mouth a little bit here, because we all know what's going on from the perspective of China. It doesn't seem good, man. What they're saying about Simu Liu, what they're saying about Chloe Zhao is not chill. So I don't know, man. It's an interesting story. I'm sure many of you are interested in this whole development, on whether or not Shang Chi and Eternals are going to get into China. For me, this seems like a sort of a line in the sand in a moment where Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige sort of need to make a decision. And I would hope that they stand up for the people that they've hired, that they stand up for Simu, they stand up for Chloe, that they stand up for those films, and that they don't have to necessarily be rude to the Chinese market or to the people in China. But they also don't have to placate and talk out of both sides of their mouth and do weird things and apologize to both audiences for different things. It just feels a little bit weird to me. So, confusing story. I have mixed feelings about it. I think Shang-Chi and Eternals are both going to be dope on their own merit. I almost don't even love that the representation conversation has to keep being brought up with these things, because I think just on face value, they're going to be dope products. But alas, these are the times that we live in, and especially when it comes to China possibly rejecting these two films, it's definitely news. It's definitely worth talking about. So let us know what you think about all of that and more in the comments section below. Make sure you are checking out the live streaming channel, where we're going to start streaming multiple times during the day, talking about all the crazy nerdy stuff going on. And make sure you are, of course, subscribed to this channel so that you always catch our videos over here. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.